Limbo is an independent video game developed by Playdead, released in July 2010. Limbo is a puzzle platformer video game originally released on the Xbox Live Arcade. You play as a speechless, nameless boy who awakens in the middle of a terrifying forest. Throughout the game, your mission is to find your supposedly missing younger sister. The boy encounters countless obstacles and enemies along his journey. The game proceeds to get harder and harder the further you progress through each puzzle platform. Ask any player, and they will tell you of a time they were infuriated with the game, but that doesn't mean it's not tons of fun. The game is truly beautiful, having a very unique art style and narrative driving it. Though the game doesn't have a super in-depth storyline, it doesn't stop fans from coming up with wild theories. One such theory suggests that you are the villain in Limbo. First, by looking at the game's menu background, we can see two gravestones, referring to the boy and his younger sister. So, we can infer from the game's title that our character is in some sort of purgatory state, a realm that is between our world and the afterlife, a limbo. Not understanding his own death and frustrated at his current situation, the boy begins to lash out. The older children that attack him from a far distance then run away, displaying that they are afraid of him. The boy then begins to take his anger out on the others trapped in Limbo. Eventually, he does begin to feel some sort of guilt and punishes himself by walking through dangerous parts of Limbo. The spider is the true guardian of the Limbo and only wants to maintain order in the realm. When it originally tries to capture the young boy, it doesn't eat him. Instead, it restrains him in its web. The boy soon realizes the spider is the only thing stopping his self-destructive, cruel behavior, so he decides it's time to take action. Horrifically, he rips the spider's legs off and uses its body as a bridge. It is truly a metaphor for how damaged people push away those that try to help them. Animal Crossing New Leaf is the highly popular Nintendo-published video game released in 2012 for the Nintendo 3DS. You play as the mayor of your own town, and it's your job to make your town a great place for all that live there. Though you are not alone in this journey. Your assistant and secretary, Isabel, is there to support you all the way. All in all, Animal Crossing on the surface is a very peaceful looking game. But, as we have learnt from other entries on this list, looks can be deceiving. What if I told you that Animal Crossing New Leaf was the story of a dead child receiving letters from their mother in the afterlife? Well, that's one theory presented to us by Reddit user Drs. Jenny in their mind-boggling post that may shatter all your previous knowledge of a once thought to be adorable game. The theory goes as so. The player from Animal Crossing has in some way died and is receiving letters from his or her mother on their grave. One part of the theory suggests that in order to get everything in the game, such as pictures, you will have to do multiple tasks helping the townsfolk. Maybe that is your character's way of making up his or her sins in the real world. It's not too far off to think that the town you live in is heaven. Your life mostly consists of peacefully catching bugs, fishing, planting, and many other joyful activities. The most heart-wrenching fact of it all is, if in fact the theory is true, receiving letters from your mom that say things such as, "I thought of you and how we used to walk in the tall grass. I hope you're doing well." These show how your mother is still grieving over her beloved child, who she clearly misses dearly. It even shows how your father is dealing with the ordeal, sending significantly fewer letters than your mother, for maybe he's dealing with it in a very different way. So, what was once thought as a cute, fun game is now a heartbreaking story of grief, redemption, and most importantly, a parent's love for their child. Metal Gear Solid 3 is an action-adventure stealth game developed by Konami. The game was originally released on November 17, 2004. You play as Naked Snake, set 3 decades back before the events of the original Metal Gear Solid, or so we're told. His mission is nothing less than heroic and gritty, saving a weapons designer, sabotaging an experimental superweapon, and assassinating his former boss. The game has some stellar, high-tech equipment, but the game definitely has a 1960s setting to it. The game was not only praised critically, but was more importantly loved by the fans of the series. That's why it would be so shocking to find out that all of this is one big lie. That, of course, is if this theory holds any sort of merit, which it just might. The theory suggests that Metal Gear Solid 3 is just a virtual reality training simulation that takes place after Metal Gear Solid 2. Here's how it works. The first piece of evidence we are given is at the very start of the game, when Major Zero begins to explain the mission to Naked Snake, telling him of the virtual mission. Snake, then confused, restates Zero's last words in a questioning tone. Throughout the game, the idea of a time paradox plays a vital role throughout the game that some players may not notice. For instance, if you leave the Snake is dead screen long enough, the words time paradox will appear. It's not referencing to an actual time paradox, but the simulation telling him to accurately follow what Snake did in order to become Big Boss. That's why, whenever you break the timeline, you are pulled out and forced to start over. More evidence makes itself apparent if you kill the man named Ocelot, who is a future, crucial character to the previous installments. If you kill the man, the game ends and Roy Campbell, a character not meant to be in this game, begins to yell at you for screwing up the future timeline. You can either believe it or not, but one thing's for sure. You will definitely be watching closely next time you pick up the controller to play Metal Gear Solid 3. The Pokémon franchise is one that has lived in the hearts of many gamers all across the globe, and hopefully will continue to live for the next generation. Probably one of the most iconic installments in the Pokémon video game universe was that of Pokémon Red and Blue, originally released in Japan under the title Pocket Monsters Red and Green on February 27, 1996. Through the course of 3 years, the titles would change to Red and Blue, and soon be released in North America, Australia, and Europe. You play in an overhead third-person view perspective as the main protagonist, who you can virtually name whatever you want, as long as it's within the character limit, of course. The game consists of you and your trusty starter Pokémon battling other Pokémon trainers, while simultaneously collecting more Pokémon to add to your adorable arsenal to go head-to-head with other trainers and wild Pokémon. Along the way, you take on gym leaders to collect badges, proving your strength as a trainer. Though some criticize the game of being highly repetitive, others counter that with how addicting that can be, saying there is so much gratification in leveling up and winning Pokémon battles. You may or may not be surprised to find out that Pokémon is no novice when it comes to peculiar fan theories. One such theory is that Pokémon Red and Blue takes place in a post-war civilization. Just think about it for a minute. You are completely fatherless in a game. For some odd reason, children all across the globe are going around unsupervised, capturing wild animals. There is an obvious lack of adults, but more so lack of men. Most of the people you meet are other children. Some are even gym leaders. Even your friend is an orphan in the game. Some believe this is because you are playing a post-global war game, where men went to fight and most of them died. The only ones left are typically older men that were too old to have fought in the war. The police and hospitals are female-only staff. In fact, there are mostly just hospitals, gyms, and stores to buy Pokémon equipment. Perfect for a world stagnated by war. Even the gym leader, Lieutenant Surge, tells you how the Pokémon saved him during the war,